Today on Beat Diabetes, we're going to talk about celebrities. Celebrities with diabetes, some of their attitudes about diabetes, and the strategies they use to either manage or turn back diabetes. I'm going to discuss 10 celebrities today, but I could come up with a lot more if I had the time. Let's jump right in. The first celebrity we'll consider is the famous actor Tom Hanks. Tom hung out in the pre-diabetic range for nearly 20 years, with his doctor constantly warning him that his blood sugar was too high. But he wasn't officially at that diabetic range of an A1C of 6.5 or higher, and he apparently didn't take it all that seriously. But finally, the hammer dropped. His doctor told him, "You know those high blood sugar numbers you've been dealing with since you were 36? Well, you've graduated. You've got type 2 diabetes, young man." He was in his 50s by that point. Tom Hanks told Radio Times, "I'm part of the lazy American generation that has blindly kept dancing through the party and now finds ourselves with a malady. I was heavy. I was a total idiot." His doctor told him that if he could get back to his weight from his high school days, he would be perfectly healthy and would not have diabetes. And Tom replied, "Well, then I'm going to have type 2 diabetes because there's no way I can weigh as much as I did in high school." Tom is doing better now, but he admits he slips up in sticking to a healthy diet at times and feels bad about it. He says he will never again take a movie role that requires him to gain significant weight. And I think that's probably pretty wise. Number 2 is Patti LaBelle, the singer. Patti LaBelle discovered she had diabetes after passing out on stage during a performance. Since then, she's overhauled her diet, trading in her favorite 7-cheese mac for egg whites and oatmeal. Not so sure that's the best way to handle it, but that's what she does. Her mother, who also had diabetes, needed to amputate her legs while her uncle went blind from diabetes, so she definitely had it in the family. Patti LaBelle told People magazine, "You can take hold of the situation." And she said, "I feel great now. I live the right way. I wear fierce clothes. Everything I do now, I do it proud." Number 3 is Nick Jonas. Nick Jonas was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the young age of 13. He was deeply concerned, and he kept asking his parents, "Am I going to be okay?" He says, "It was something I thought would slow me down before I even got started. But thankfully, it didn't. And I'm in the healthiest place I've been since my diagnosis." Well, that's good news. In November 2019, Nick Jonas wrote on Instagram, "This experience has shaped how I approach my health, working out, eating well, and always thinking about my blood sugar and insulin needs." He describes one of his major tools in managing diabetes, type 1 diabetes that is his Dexcom CGM, and he apparently monitors his blood sugar very closely. The fourth celebrity we'll look at is Paula Deen. Paula was diagnosed with type 2 in 2009, but it took her a while to come out publicly with the diagnosis. She shares a recipe on one of her internet sites for a butternut apple mash, which includes 2 Granny Smith apples, a 1/4 cup of orange juice, and 2 teaspoons of packed dark brown sugar. She says instead of adding fat-laden butter and cream, mix in a little orange juice and big, bold spices like ginger and curry powder. Dean told Al Roker when he interviewed her about her diabetes, "I just tell people, do things in moderation. You can have a little piece of pie. Diabetes does not have to stop you from enjoying the things you love." Sort of sounds like the ADA. Paula got a lot of flack for her Southern cooking programs and then the fact that she ended up getting diabetes. A lot of the criticism, however, was not so much about the sugar that she put in her foods, but it was the fat. They just hated the thought that she advocated using a lot of cream and butter. The next diabetic we'll look at is Drew Carey. People magazine reports that comedian Drew Carey says he has stopped his type 2 diabetes and he has stopped the need to take any medication for it by shedding 80 pounds through a diet in which he almost totally gave up eating carbohydrates. In his diet, Carey says he eliminated almost all carbs, including pizza, bread, crackers, and any grain or starch-based food. His one carb of choice he does allow himself to eat sometimes is fruit. Drew Carey says, I'm not diabetic anymore. No medication needed. I've cheated a couple of times, but basically no carbs, not even a cracker. No bread at all, no pizza, nothing. No corn, no beans, no starches of any kind. Now, a lot of people don't like Carey's diet. They consider this low-carb diet radical and controversial. And especially they hate the idea that he claims, well, I'm not diabetic anymore, feeling like that's almost blasphemous to suggest you can actually reverse diabetes or to say you're not diabetic once you've crossed that line. But Drew Carey is happy and symptom-free, and his blood sugar levels are consistently below what is considered diabetic without taking any meds. Sounds like he's doing pretty good to me. Another celebrity with diabetes is Randy Jackson. He is the producer and former American Idol judge, and he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes back in 2003. In an interview with the Today Show, Randy Jackson quoted his doctor telling him, "I'll meet you at the emergency room." And he says, there are few things you hope you'll never hear a doctor say, and that is definitely one of them. But there I was on an otherwise uneventful day back in 1999, listening to those very same words over the phone. I'll meet you in the emergency room. Actually, says Jackson, I was a little relieved. For 5 long days, I had been feeling sick in the craziest kind of way. Extremely tired, extremely thirsty, all sweaty and dizzy. It felt like I had a really bad cold or the flu, and although I'd taken everything from aspirin to cold medicine to try and make myself feel better, nothing had helped. At least now I was going to find out what was wrong with me, even if it meant a trip to the hospital. Let's see what's going on, said my doctor. And what was going on, it turned out, was diabetes. Jackson says, my wife and I drove over to the hospital and waited for my doctor to arrive. When my doctor got to the hospital, Erica and I were whisked off to a room, and the nurses went to work, checking my blood pressure and sticking me with needles. My doctor had ordered a series of tests, including one that would determine the level of sugar in my blood. A short time later, I got the bad news. It's kind of what I thought, my doctor told me. You have type 2 diabetes. Your blood sugar is over 500. Jackson has now lowered his weight significantly. He spoke with Essence.com about living with diabetes. They asked him, what do you think are the greatest misconceptions about diabetes? And he replied, I think the misconception is that there is a cure. You have it for the rest of your life, and there is no cure. I also think there's not enough information out there readily at hand. Another celebrity is Larry King. The 85-year-old television personality was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and he's tried to maintain a healthy lifestyle. He says, I follow my doctor's wishes. I take my prescription drugs. I take a lot of vitamins. Following your doctor's wishes could be a really good thing if you've got a really good doctor. Following your doctor's wishes might not be so great if you've got a doctor who's not so great. So make sure if you're going to follow your doctor's wishes, you find an outstanding doctor that can really help you. Another celebrity is the athlete Earl Monroe. They used to call him Earl the Pearl Monroe. He's now a retired basketball player. He was in his mid-50s when he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And he says people with diabetes can look at me, knowing I played professional basketball, and they can recognize the fact that we all have the same problem, regardless of who we are. Celebrity with diabetes number 9 is Jerry Mathers. I've talked about him before, but it's worth reminding you a little of the facts of his situation. The Leave It to Beaver actor Jerry Mathers was asked by his doctor if he wanted to live to see his grandchildren. He replied, of course he did. His doctor then told him that this would never happen. He'd be dead in 3 to 5 years if he didn't lose weight and take control of his diabetes. Jerry Mathers took his doctor seriously and made an effort to lose weight. When he had a tough time doing it on his own, he joined a Jenny Craig program, and then the pounds did indeed begin to come off. He also began to walk and jog 5 or more miles daily. And between his walking and losing about 70 pounds, Jerry's blood sugar went below the diabetic range and has remained at the pre-diabetic level ever since. He had sky-high blood sugar before. and now it's in the pre-diabetic range. When he counsels people with diabetes, his approach is primarily the same approach that worked for him: lose weight and exercise. All right, let's talk about Halle Berry. Of all the celebrities with diabetes, the actor Halle Berry is considered probably the most controversial of all. And there are lots of diabetics and diabetic experts who really don't like her very much. At least they don't like her approach to diabetes and her claims that she has beaten diabetes. Halle Berry was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes at the young age of 22. She was apparently somewhere between type 1 and type 2. Her pancreas was producing a little bit of insulin, but not much. She passed out on the set of a TV show she was recording and ended up in a diabetic coma that lasted for a full week. When she regained consciousness, her doctors did not mince words. They told her that if she did not make some major changes in her diet and lifestyle, she was facing blindness, amputations, and liver failure. Halle immediately did a 180. She says, "I started to eat loads of wonderful fresh vegetables, chicken, fresh fish, and pasta." Like all of that, but the pasta. She says, "I cut out red meat and cut back on fruit because it can contain quite a lot of sugar." She's right about that. Halle was so successful with her low-carb diet that it was reported that she stopped taking insulin for a while and began to speak about being cured of type 1 diabetes. And, well, that set a lot of doctors and nutritionists to talking and criticizing her, declaring that type 1 diabetes is incurable, and if she no longer needed insulin, she never was a true type 1 in the first place. Later, Halle Berry apparently began to take insulin again. But one thing is for sure, Halle Berry is managing her diabetes, whatever form it is, very well. She looks great, and she even had a baby at the age of 41 and then a second baby at the age of 46. As Halle Berry grew older and the keto diet became more popular, she moved closer and closer to a true keto diet. She says, "After being diagnosed with diabetes at 22, I adopted what I now know was basically a keto diet. My doctors told me I'd have to keep an eye on how I ate to stay healthy, and I took it to heart. I wanted to get off insulin, so I decided to say goodbye to processed carbs and sugar like baked goods and white bread. And it has seriously paid off. For more than 15 years, eating this way has helped me manage my diabetes, but it has also given me a ton of energy and helped me maintain my weight and stay in shape. When my trainer, Peter, formally introduced me to the ketogenic lifestyle a few years ago, I realized all I had to do to feel even better still was give my body more healthy fats, like avocados, coconut oil, and butter, so it had more of that fuel to burn. Today, eating keto is second nature to me. I feel incredible on the high-fat, moderate protein, and very low-carb plan. Seriously," she says, "I couldn't tell you the last time I even craved sweets. And I wouldn't go back to the sugar-eating ways of before my diabetes diagnosis for anything in the world." So there you have it, 10 celebrities with diabetes and what they're doing to manage their diabetes. As you can see, celebrities, like most of us ordinary mortals, are all over the map when it comes to dealing with diabetes. Normally, I don't pay too much attention to the opinions of celebrities. They typically know how to do one thing very well, whether it's acting or sports or singing. But the minute they start speaking on other subjects, like politics or religion or diet, they usually lose all credibility. Just because someone can act or sing or dunk a basketball does not make them an expert in anything else. The average school teacher or plumber or Walmart clerk may know more than they do about such things, but of course, no one is sticking a microphone in their faces to ask them about it. But there are truly some celebrities that have really figured some things out. Jerry Mathers, for example, realized he would have to lose weight to live a long life, and he has done it. Halle Berry and Drew Carey really get it. They have learned that carbohydrates are not the diabetic's friend, and by slashing the carbs in their diet, they have been able to bring their glucose levels beautifully under control. The good news is this: you don't have to be a celebrity to beat diabetes. You don't have to be as beautiful as Halle Berry or as funny as Drew Carey, or you don't have to sing as pretty as Nick Jonas. You can just be you. Someone who, by the way, who is very special in the eyes of God, and you will find that He will help you find your path to victory. For most of us, carbohydrate restriction, time-restricted eating, and a moratorium on snacking are going to be the tools of our trade to get the job done. They do cost us a little bit. There are sacrifices to make, but they work so very well. If you've recently been diagnosed with diabetes and you've just discovered this channel, let me recommend that you go to our Uploads page, which will give you access to every diabetic video we've posted since we began. As you work your way through all our videos, I believe you'll find the help you need. A link to our Uploads page is in the description.